Good morning, everyone, and welcome for a new live video AMA. My name is Amandine Flachs, and today I am excited to be hosting our last AMA of this year already. I don't know for you, but 2020 have been going super fast and has been, well, very different from the previous year. But anyway, we did it. We managed to end the year. I have no idea what's going to be for us for 2021, but that's it for 2020. I also have to plan ahead my guest list for 2021. I haven't done that yet, but anyway, I'm happy to be here today. We are right now live on many platforms, and we are going to be together for about an hour with our guest today, Jenny Ervine, the co-founder of Raise Ventures. But before I let her introduce herself, I'd like to invite you all to just jump into the discussion, whatever platform you're using right now. So I am monitoring everything. And, if it's just to say hi on the chat, tell us where you're watching from, or just ask us anything, anytime. I have a bunch of questions planned for Jenny, but you can also ask your own anytime, and I'll make sure to pass them on because, well, your questions always have the priority, and I feel that you always have good questions and almost better than mine. Anyway, also, if at any point you have to go or anything, you can find all my interviews on YouTube, and today's video will be available on my YouTube channel on Monday afternoon. So check it out. Be sure to subscribe if you stop by, and also if you want to keep the discussion going after this AMA, and I know it may be quite some time before we have our next guest next year, you can stop by my Discord, and yeah, we're quite active. I'm trying to coordinate their gaming evening, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. But anyway, you can join and just let's talk about what you're working on outside of the live stream. But that's it for my introduction. I'm really happy to have Jenny here today with me. Jenny, how are you doing?
Hi, Amandine. Thank you so much for having us and lovely to get together and have a chat. I'm so delighted to be a part of this. As you mentioned, I'm the co-founder of Raise Ventures. We help early stage tech startups kind of build their business, commercialize, and look for investment. We're based in Belfast in Northern Ireland, but we do help startups across the whole of Ireland and the UK. We've some startups in London near you as well. So yeah, I'm excited to get started.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm really happy to have you here, especially as we've been talking together for quite some time. And so, yeah, it's good to eventually manage to do it. There are lots of people I wanted to have them on the stream, but because it's Saturday morning or because it just has been hard to find a time to do it. So very happy to have you. So you mentioned Raise Venture. Can you tell us a bit more about your own background, what you did before that, what led you to start Raise Ventures, and also a bit about the Northern Ireland startup ecosystem, because I guess in your situation, it has a big impact what's already in the area, in the region, right?
Yeah, I mean, why did I get into startups? One of my very first jobs after graduating was in a startup, in a travel startup, and I loved it. I loved the energy, the enthusiasm. We were going out and looking for was travel deals to put on our website. They were one of the very first travel companies to offer activity packages separate from the flight. So that was really cool and innovative, and I really enjoyed being part of the development of that business. And I guess that just kind of ignited my passion for startups. My background is in marketing, and I love the story of telling about a company and the founder and the problem that the startup is solving. And I love helping them create that into a campaign or through social media content. So I did a lot of marketing freelance work for a number of years with startups. And then I also came from the angle of investing into startups. I found it really interesting. There was all these cool startups. They needed some help and they needed some money. And then I started investing into startups. So I've been on both sides of the table, looking for startups for investment, and then as an investor looking for startups. And that kind of led to where Raise came from. There was some pitching events in Belfast for a couple of years, and then they stopped. And then we said, well, we've got startups looking for investors. How do they find them? And we started some Raise events, and that was startups pitching to investors in a nice, relaxed environment, just to build those connections. And then that led to the development of our program, which is the accelerator, which helps the startups on that journey. And then at the end, they can then go to the pitching events. So that's what we do in Belfast. To your point in terms of the ecosystem, I mean, Belfast is a great place. We've in Northern Ireland a very small community. Was it 1.5 million people in Northern Ireland? You always know somebody. There's people always out there willing to help and give advice. There's a great ecosystem here. It's quite tech focused, and there's been a real drive both from startups and from local government to try and push people into thinking about starting their businesses. And yeah, we've got a real kind of ecosystem starting to grow. It's taken some time, but we can really see it starting to flourish. And just this week, our digital DNA, which is a big conference here, launched the top 50 NI startups. So I can share that with you guys, just about who's doing what, and they're across all sectors, but mostly very innovative in terms of technology. So there's lots of exciting things happening, and it's great to have a platform to tell everybody about our little, island of Ireland and Belfast and Northern Ireland. So
it's very important not to just have everything centralized in one place, right? So I have a question on the chat from I am Xoro, but you know what? I want to keep it slightly later. I'd like to deep dive a bit more into Raise Venture before asking this question, because it's more about your own journey. So, instead of jumping from one topic to another, but I'm going to ask you a question. I am Xoro. I definitely do. So looking at Raise Venture from kind of a business perspective, I was reading recently that it is a private accelerator, and the only private accelerator of Northern Ireland. Does it mean that it's kind of it was a big blank canvas for you, and an opportunity to create something new and maybe do some education, or was it really hard to bring something that people were not necessarily used to? And what does it really mean to be privately funding? Does it change anything in your approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. We obviously Northern Ireland's had some challenging times, and coming out of those challenging times, the government put a lot of money in behind the economy and businesses. So there is some government-led accelerator startup programs here in Belfast, and I guess then we're the first that's privately funded. So we are actually living the journey of a startup. We came together as co-founders, we put together a co-founder agreement, we've got a cap table, we have put investment into the company. So we're living the same story that our startups are doing. And I guess the difference then is that we can create and craft our own path. We are very much long-term driven. We're very focused on our founder. We're focused on mentoring, advice, and helping the startups, and we're founder friendly. So we actually take a stake in our businesses for all the work that we do, and that's an equity stake. So we don't make any money early on, and it's in our interest to help our companies succeed, and therefore then potentially down the road be successful. But we also know with the funding model that they're not all going to be successful, and we have to work really hard at that. So I guess that's why we're a bit different. The government startups programs are great. They've got good companies coming through them, and they'll signpost them also towards investment. But I guess the difference is maybe that equity stakeholding is a bit different. So yeah, it's really exciting. We've got lots of great plans for the new year to craft our path, but to be a wee bit more commercial, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Does this change the way you select the companies, and also I guess your KPI or your objective, in terms of when you can't just be funding cool startup like governmental funded programs. You have to think about your return on investment. How does this affect the entire process, or maybe your thesis as a program?
Yeah, absolutely. We only take 6 companies every couple of months, so we have to be really focused on what they are. It's great to have people coming to us with ideas. We can certainly help them, but we like to see people that come with something built, a product, because it can take so long to build a product. To come with an idea, it's going to take a long time to get investment. So we can certainly help that early stage, like really idea stage, but we've got a nice sweet spot that if you come with a technology built or and a solution, then we can really help that go to market. Fast pace opportunity to and then look for the investment piece, and it sits quite nicely. We do a lot of work with the angels to say what are you
Hmm.
looking for, and a lot of work with the startups and try and be that matchmaker in the middle. So yeah, really refining what we're looking for enables us to be more commercial and hopefully be more successful.
So that's good that you mentioned success, because I was about to ask you, how do you measure success then? Is it in terms of the step that startups take right after the program, maybe if they raise investment? Because it takes time, right, to see the impact of what you're doing. Potentially you're helping a startup, but they're not going to raise money before a year after the program, or you can't really say they're successful until they reach a certain stage, so it will take a long time.
Yeah, yeah. So we work with them to make sure we've got what we the venture community would call a deal room. So we want to make sure that the companies at the end of our program have everything ready to go and look for investment. That's our top priority. So they need to have their business plan, they need to have their pitch deck, they need to have their one pager. And we do an awful lot of work in the company secretary role in terms of good governance and cap tables and term sheets and all that, just to make sure that they're really well set up. They understand the terminology, and then they can go and look for the investment, and we support them beyond our program for that investment process because it does take time. But the success for the deliverables, I guess, is making sure they've got a good deal room, and then the investment will come following that, I guess. So yeah, that companies are in our alumni from last year. We still work with them to try and, both from a customer um, journey and from an investment journey. It's, this is a long-term thing for us. So
I guess it's the program is for a limited amount of time, because that's where you have like all the session and all what everything is that is organized. But then it's a long term relationship you're building, because anyway, because you have equity in the company, you're here for the long run. So it's in your own interest also to be involved on the longer term. Um, has the pandemic and the current situation changed the type of business who apply to the program? Have you seen any any change in terms of the applications themselves?
yeah, so I mean, this time last year we got a couple of travel startups, and they've had to be on pause, and we'll hopefully come back to them next year. Over this year we did, it's very focused in terms of solutions that can be global and remote, fintech solutions, recruitment solutions, and those are kind of the things that we can see, e-commerce, education, the things that are working right now were needed anyway, but I guess the pandemic has accelerated the requirement from
Hmm.
customers, which is great. So it'll be interesting. We're opening up again now for the new year for spring intake. It'll be interesting to see what comes, but people have problems with one in the mortgage broker industry, and they are just traditionally old school, and it's not necessarily the pandemic that's making them the solution, but they just need to be digital transformation. So I guess there's a layer of pandemic, but there's also a layer of digital transformation that's going to happen anyway.
Yeah. How do you help them with that? And what have you done within Raise Venture? Like, because I mean, I can imagine that you've changed the format now, doing it online, and well, I think that's kind of the easy change, right? Like moving everything online, doing your webinars or your event online. It's not that hard anymore. But then that's the entire strategy around what you do, and your entire approach that is the hardest to move. Have you had to change anything in terms of the content to adapt to that and to help better the startup going through that?
I think there's two sides of the coin. There's one of what process the startup goes through, and we've realized that the supply for startups is quite high. So they really have to stand out from the crowd, which, coming from a marketing background, we really focus on that sales and marketing piece to try and I mean, I think I saw a stat that there was 7,000, SaaS companies launched, in the last couple of years recently. I must pick up that stat again. But just the competitive marketplace, so they need to be able to stand out. So we changed our program a bit more to think about the sales tactics and the marketing tactics and getting the first couple sales under your belt. So that's definitely been a change for us because it's been a lot harder again to sell online. And then the other side of the coin, from our approach as advisors and mentors, we've become a bit more of a coaching and a support tool. So obviously people are at home, they're on their own, it can be very lonely. So we've identified that as something we need to just come in and have a cup of coffee online and just have a nice chat, as well as look at the business side of things. So we're very much as more of a supportive role this year than I've seen before. So just, it's tough times and just working through that and trying to come to some sort of plan and trying to get motivated. So yeah, we've definitely seen a change there. So we do a bit of both commercial and support.
I think that the tricky thing is that there is no one solution that fits all, and so everyone has to reflect on what they're doing and how they're doing it, and what they can do to just, well, make a business more robust to this kind of situation, and just find tricks, tips, or even just rethink about what's the DNA of their own company. Like last week, I was chatting with two co-founders, and their business model is based on, well, was based on the fact that people were booking venue to work from, and with the situation, well, you can't do that at all. But they managed to take a step back and think and kind of refocus the business, not as a venue provider, but more like a community builder. And that's what they're monetizing. And that's kind of, I'm not saying that they changed what they were doing, but I think they kind of rethink about how they position themselves, who they are, what's really important within the business. Is it what you're providing, or is it the value that you're trying to build with your community? But that is a difficult discussion to have, because you can't just build a big workshop and tell everyone what to do.
Yeah, trying to back to that, trying to make yourself stand out. You really do need to build a community of brand ambassadors around your product, and then they'll tell everybody, come and buy this, come and look at this. And you can see it being a lot more niche focused now on, the brand and the solution that they provide.
You said you accept 6 startup per cohort. What's the sweet spot, and what's the best time for a startup to join a program? If there is a best time, if there is something like a sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I've been through this journey myself as a startup founder. You come up with the idea, and at that point, you probably want to sound it out a bit more and validate it and see, not just with your friends and family, but with independent customers, if people will buy this. And then, if there's a tech solution, start looking to see how that can be built. And quite often, if we see industry founders coming, they might have a tech friend that can help them. Or if we tech founders coming, they go and talk to industry. And we see, people coming to our cohort with advisors on their team that have already helped build something. And then they're just saying, look, we just need a bit of help. We need a bit of structure. We don't quite know how to take this to the next level. We know we want to make this grow. One example was in our cohort over last spring in the stock taking market, and he knew he had a really good service business, and he knew he wanted to scale it, but he just couldn't quite know how. And now we've identified that he can offer a software as a service alongside his stock taking, and it's grown exponentially, and he's got some great orders already in for next year. So I guess it's the how. So they've come with an idea, they've got an idea of what they want to build, or maybe they've built a bit of an MVP, or even a bit of something on Figma that works but hasn't been built yet. And they just want to know, what do we do next in terms of making this a real business? So we come from the business angle and then come build on the investment piece to that after. So yeah, we get both. We get industry founders and tech founders coming, and it's great to see both, because they can then help each other through our cohort and through our alumni. So we're starting to see a real benefit of knowledge sharing through the alumni, which is great.
Well, I think that's kind of a way of showing success, right? It's not just about the startup, but it's also about activating this ecosystem. And if you have people that are not just the startup founders who want, well, help with accelerating their business, but also other people part of the ecosystem joining you. That should mean that you're doing something right? If you have other people trying to plug in and interested in being involved because they know that, well, they are doing something interesting and they're going to be able to work with great startups.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, we invited you to come along and join part of our Tech for Non-Tech. So
Yeah.
alongside kind of the core of the program, we run community events ourselves, and those are the kind of Tech for Non-Tech branded events whereby we're bringing up different subjects and bringing in people with expertise, and then we also bring our founders in to listen. And then, for example, the one on UX, one on no code, one on gaming, and trying to learn about different aspects of technology, and then they can join together if they need help. If a company joined the UX one, for example, and they needed UX help, there was a panel of nice expertise that they could go and pull on. So that's we see that as a real strength to what we do.
Is there any recurring theme or topic where that people really struggle with regularly, like something that you see everyone is just falling into this trap or just making this mistake or just having difficulties going from this step to this step?
One of the biggest things is the investment piece, the legals in particular. If you've worked in industry and you want to solve this problem and you've never seen a cap table and you've never seen a term sheet, you just don't know what they are. So that's the biggest trap. We see companies come to us and they're not maybe set up right, or they don't have the right documents. And if somebody's coming to invest in them, it's just not going to happen until all that's sorted. So that's, I mentioned earlier, we spend a lot of time in governance land, corporate governance land, just making sure that that's right. So it's a big learning, and you just you don't know what you don't know. And the legals can be tough. You don't need to become a lawyer as a founder, but you do need to know the top 10 or 20% of terminology and structure of a business.
And especially as you usually don't have the time to talk to your lawyer or anyone else when you're talking to investors. Like you're on a call with a VC or with an angel, they start mentioning something that you don't know. You take some notes, and it can happen regularly, but then at some point you need to be able to speak the same language to make sure that you understand each other. And so if you don't have the foundation, like no one, like I know that many founders don't know all the terms and you can't cover everything. It takes so much time to just learn about everything about VC and investment. But just the foundation, I think it's key to have a minimum of understanding. Otherwise, how can you have just a discussion if you don't really understand everything possible? Like you can't just say yes and do your research after that, because otherwise you may agree or you may be in a bad situation. So you have to get the basic and the foundations right.
Yeah, you have to be really careful when you're going into those conversations. And if there is a term that comes up, you just say, I come back to you on that, particularly around, the shareholding side of things and preference shares and all that kind of meaty things that can land in a term sheet. And if you don't know them, they can get you into trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And you have, like, you can't just fake it on the phone all the time. If you've started diving into the detail or if someone mentions something, yeah, you can say, as you said, you can say, yeah, I'll get back to you, but you can't do that for every call. At some point you just need to be able to face it, and you can't have your lawyer or someone next to you for that. So just to make sure you're on the same page. We actually we had a question that I think could be a good time to ask from I Am Xoro. So I Am Xoro asks, what's the worst mistake that you've made in your life and what did you learn from it? I think it's a big question, but in the same time, it's a good turn to start focusing more on your own experience. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I guess, I always think things happen for a reason. And you look back and think, would I have done it differently? No, maybe not. So from this mistake, I think you can always learn. One of the big things for us for our accelerator was we at the very start, we took on quite a large office space. And we thought we could run a lot of events and try and generate a really good community. And we did, but suddenly realized that running events and running an accelerator, you need a bigger team. So we were able at the start of this year to downsize. So we still have office space for our startups and we can still run some events. But I think, as a founder, one of the mistakes is I think we tried to do too much too soon, and we didn't focus on what our core of our business was, which was the accelerator program. We were trying to do the event. So I think it's really important not to try and do too much. And maybe someday we'll come back to looking at those larger events. But yeah, I think that was one of and you learn and you move on, and it's great to see that we've still got some of the space. More from the community aspect and the face-to-face stuff hopefully will open up in the new year. So looking forward to seeing more of our startups coming into the office.
I think I love events. I used to organize lots of them, but it's very hard just to monetize them and to have them to keep going. Like it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling when you see your community growing, and it's really motivating. You want to do more because everyone is happy and it brings some attention to you. It's also kind of it's a good excuse to reach out to some people to ask them to be on a panel or part of a discussion. But in the same time, if it's not the core activity or the main way of bringing money to a business, it can be a kind of a rabbit hole where you start doing more and more because it's exciting, but in the same time it's not what it is about, so you're wasting lots of time on that. We have a question from David. I know that you know David. David asked, what makes Northern Ireland special for startups and investors? That's a good question.
Yeah, I mentioned at the start the community. So yeah, we are a small community. There's a lot of great support out there. Everybody is really keen to help each other. Also, we're very resilient as a community. We like to get on and do things, very entrepreneurial and very innovative. And I think some of that could be related back to the challenging times that Northern Ireland has, but also just because we've just got resilience and we're keen to try new things. And we've touched on this a wee bit, that the resource cost here is a wee bit lower than it maybe would be in London. So for an investment round, it can go a wee bit further. So to build your team here in Northern Ireland, you get some smaller investment rounds. You can do a lot more with that money, and you can take your company to the next stage a lot quicker. And that's a really good benefit. But it's a great test bed. So if you develop a solution, you can get customers quite easily to adopt it and try it out, approve your product out, and then launch into the UK and further afield. So there's a couple of great things: the community, low resource cost base, and also just being able to test stuff out and try things out before you launch. So yeah, it's a really good place to get started. And from an investor's point of view, there's a lot of pay it forward. We've got some great diaspora that have left again during the challenging times and maybe want to come back, and maybe want to help out and pay it forward. So there's some great support from local investors and diaspora investors. And again, they can see that their money can go a wee bit further here and can help out. And I mean, there's obviously the job element to it and the community element to it as well. That money goes into making jobs and making a good community. And so it's great. We talked to a lot of funds across the UK, and they all say, yes, we're looking at Northern Ireland as a region, but not too many of them have invested. Power Equity would be a really good one that has, and we're hoping to attract more funds to come and look at Northern Ireland as a good spot, so.
Well, that's a good news then. And if there are any investors watching us, I guess that's kind of a call also saying, hey, we have some interesting startup there. And I think I'm based in London, so I don't know much about the ecosystem over there. But I know that in London, it's crowded. It's hard to stand out from the crowd as a startup because it's extremely crowded. And even for you as an accelerator, it would have been a big fight to create another accelerator in London because there are already so many of them, and not all of them are that good. I mean, you can't really, like, you can compare all of them, and depending on what you do, when you look at the generalist accelerator, there are some good and some less good programs, and it's very hard to just, as a founder, do your own research, find information about the programs, and it's just very saturated in London. So everyone fight for the best one, and then many end up in less good ones. I mean, it's a bit too crowded.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a big focus even from like the UK Business Angel Network as well to try and bring money out of London to the regions. We do a lot of work with Norwich and Manchester and up into Edinburgh, and we learn a lot from them because they have similar ecosystems to us in terms of, a smaller selection of investors, the similar types of companies, and there's lots of cross-referencing, and we would share deals accordingly. We're like, well, in Manchester, would you have a look at some of our deals, and we'll look at some of your deals, and it makes it more interesting for our investors if they can see a really nice deal flow coming through.
Definitely. So you mentioned also earlier that you have done some investment yourself, I guess as an angel, right?
Yeah.
So I know so many angels really like the freedom they have, and they will definitely not go into create an institution or create a VC fund because well, it's not for them, but they don't like feeling like they have to match some KPI and to have them objective. What's your take on that, and what push you, like, how do you see what you do as an angel investor compared to what you do with raise venture? Are you also one of those who like to keep your freedom for your personal investment, and so you can focus on other criteria for the fund, or is there something else?
I guess as an angel investor, it's all about managing portfolio. So you have different risk buckets, I call them. So by going into a fund, it's maybe less risk because you've got a fund manager, and they're really working closely with the companies, and they've got a mandate to deal with, and there's a place for that. Part of some EIS funds, because maybe you're time poor and you don't have the time to go and look at all these great companies, and it enables the money to be able to be invested, and you don't have to worry about it as much. But I also love the freedom of, yes, being the angel investor, getting involved, being a director, having the hands-on feel, and seeing a company really grow and develop. So I've been involved in both, and I think there's a place for both in a portfolio if you can manage it. And I think the VCs at a later stage, you kind of got angel investing, EIS funds, and then the VCs. They're a wee bit bigger, they're a wee bit more scaling the company, they're looking for higher returns, and it's not something I've looked at from a investor point of view yet, but it's certainly, I'm learning about the VC world as an angel investor, and understanding, well, how does that fit into maybe my portfolio, and watching, there's so many VCs out there, the more focused that they are. I know we're involved in Backed VC, kind of looking for deals and trying to help them out. I love their mandate, that they are really founder focused, and it's all about the team, and then maybe the product and technology second. I love what they're doing. So I think it's a crowded space for VCs as well, and you have to try and maybe pick the good ones as an investor if you wanted to be involved, and that takes time and energy. So yeah, it's something I'd be keen to look at, but not right now. I'm busy looking at yeah, so from an angel investor perspective, I do my own things, but then I also support some of our raise companies as well when I can, and then use my network to try and support those companies further. And that's what it's all about.
So you have many hats because
Yeah.
you have the angel investor hat, that is something you do like on your own, but also just with raise ventures you are founder, but in the same time you also have to put yourself in the shoes of an investor, in a sense that you're investing your time and the program to get equity. So I guess you kind of have to put yourself in both situation. What's the mindset? What's the secret to do that? Do you try to compartment, or is there something in your approach that makes the both work together?
Um, yeah, I think, the mandate that Back to BC has would be very similar to mine. I'm very founder focused, I'm very team focused, and their vision, that's what I buy into, and I would use similar um, KPIs or vision board for both my own angel investing and for raise
Hmm.
ventures. I think if they're a really good founder with good industry experience and they've got a really good vision and I can understand the solution, that's when I buy into them. And from a raise ventures point of view, we have our co-founders and we all decide who gets on the program, so everybody gets an input, and they all bring values to the table of what they're looking for from a company. But those kind of core aspects of team and good product and good vision applies to any of the companies that we would work with. And I think that's really key.
I think what I found super interesting when I was looking at Raise Ventures website and the composition of your team is that the entire team has real experience building and growing companies. And sometimes I find it a bit frustrating when you have programs where no one has ever created a company before, and even if they're trying to find great mentors, you can't really well, you can understand the steps and what you're going through, but until you do it, it's not the same. Like there is something that happens when you actually do it yourself, and you're driving the boat and have to make decision for your own company. Is this really a key differentiator with your team, and how do everyone help out without getting into each other?
Yeah, I mean, our team's got a wide range of experience, which is what I was really keen to bring to the table. So we have Matt Johnson from Digital Circle, which is all about community building and digital skills, and he worked a lot in that sector, but also has dealt with a number of startups in their journey. We have Michael McDowell, who's been part of EIS and part of crowdfunding, so brings investor connections and an understanding of the investment process. And then we have Marty Neal, who's built his own startup and raised funding, and comes in from I've been there and I've done it, and he's starting to scale, and this is all the things that you need to deal with. And then we're living this as Raise. We've set up a cap table. We're going to be looking for investment as Raise down the road. We're going to be doing all the things we're telling our startups. So I think that makes us a wee bit different. We know how hard it is for the startups, and not only our journey, but we're learning from our startups. Like there was one startup this week was asking about how do you build your team early on if you've no money? How do you incentivize your it's not necessarily your co-founders, but your first hires. And we were talking about equity, and we're talking about sweat equity, and then we're learning what other companies are doing within our cohorts, and what's the right percentage should you give away, and we're learning all that, and we're doing it ourselves as Raise. So I think that makes us quite unique.
I love that. I think it makes things way much more interesting, and also the fact that, well, you say it's not just about the fact that you know how to do it, but you are learning how to do it also in the same time. I love that. So, what's the next big step for either yourself or for the company for the coming year? Well, for the year to come.
Yeah, we've got some exciting things happening New Year's. I mentioned we've got the program open for spring
Yes.
intake, so it's live at the moment on our website, raise-ventures.com. We're also sounding out a couple of things. One would be like a syndicate type model, whereby, again, touching on those angels that just maybe want to try investing and don't quite know how, and we'd be the lead investor in those, and the angels could come in and learn that process, because we see a real new generation of, dare I say, younger investors being interested in startups, and we'd love to support them. So I think a syndicate might be a good way to help educate and collaborate on that. And then, as I mentioned, Raise itself, we're 2 years in, we're self-funded at the moment, but we'd love to be looking for investment into the accelerator. And I guess that's a different level whereby investors can be part of our core team as Raise and what we're doing, and then that then funnels into our startups. So there's a couple of ways that people can get involved as startups and investors. So those are the exciting things that we're working on for next year.
I really like what you just said about this new generation of angels, because I have seen also popping out some new kind of courses or programs to help people who want to start investing money, and also kind of demystify angel investment, saying, lots of programs saying, okay, you can invest 10K or 5K in a company. That's small, that's a small ticket, but still, that's there are ways to start investing small. You don't have to have 200K to invest straight away, or like you don't have to have lots of money to start investing. And so I'm happy to see more and more programs and more discussions around this topic. My friend Andy, he's doing this course in the UK. Well, I think it's remote though, but yeah, he launched that. I think the first cohort was a couple of months ago, and I really like the idea of helping people understand how to angel invest. But I think then this struggle for the startups is to identify the angel investors. The first thing you think about angel investment and trying to reach out to angel, you think about either very high net worth people that are very hard to reach, or you think about syndicates, but then if you're specialized, syndicates might be not the best, like the easiest way to find angels, because what you do is so specialized that you can't find the people you want to reach out to. Is there some way for founders to navigate the angel investment scape?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about to our founders, angel investors are often somebody that you will already know, or somebody you know will know. It's that friends, family, and people call it fools, but friends and family and people, acquaintances that and working your network early on is probably where people will buy into you, because they know you as a person, they know that you're a good founder, and they will then understand your vision and want to support your company. So it can quite often come from your existing network, but it can also come from your first customers. So if you're talking about a solution in recruitment technology, and you're talking to somebody who's having this problem already, they might want to invest if they understand the solution. So I mean, navigating the angel network is really challenging. We've had startups come on and say we've talked to 100 people and we've got 99 no's. So it's a real job. It takes time. But I guess if you can work the network and have everything in place, what we talked about, the deal room, then the chances of success can be a lot higher. Syndicates, they're there for a reason. They're there because they have a common interest. And if you can align with that common interest, you'll certainly get support. Sometimes they're industry specific, sometimes they're stage specific, and sometimes they're just a group of people interested in investing, and they'll have a wide mandate. So yeah, I guess it's working your network. We have a survey out at the moment from investors asking, what do you look for? How do you find your deals? And more they are finding them online. So it's a trickier. It's a crowded space for startups to get access to those angels, and the more places they can be, again, the better chance of success.
Yeah. Well, going through this exactly step right now, yes, I completely get what you mean. Tricky times, but very interesting also, because I found that angels have it's very interesting to discuss with angels, more interesting sometimes than VCs. If you don't fit into the box immediately, or if you don't say exactly what will make you fall into some specific box, then you're out of the box. With angel, it's more like you convince them of the idea, you explain your idea, and you don't really convince VCs. You just fall into the box or not, which can be a bit frustrating sometimes. But anyway, I really love your approach. So do you have any tips for founders looking to go to the next step, or any resources you'd like to mention that you find very helpful, like books, blogs, anything?
Yeah, I mean, founders is very much, use your network, reach out. There's lots of support out there. There's some really good, accelerators, government support, and there's some, I guess it's doing that early stage basics, make sure your idea, make sure it's well validated, make sure you're talking to independent people first. and start thinking about how you're going to build this. Because if you're not a technologically minded founder, that can be a challenge. And we do obviously our own community based work on tech for non-tech to help them upskill. So I mean, there's great support tools out there, and just in terms of blogs, and we run our own Raise Ventures blogs. I'm trying to think of good blogs out there, but yeah, certainly I'll maybe put together a list that could be a good blog for the new year, resources and support for startups. But yeah, just reach out to, on LinkedIn, via communities online, and just say, like, I've got a question. I think no question's a silly question. And if you're thinking it, somebody else is going to be thinking it too.
That's so true, yes. And people are usually happy to answer questions if you have a specific question. Large communities are good when you just want to exchange, but sometimes when you have one question that bothers you, as you said, someone have been through the same thing, or someone is going through the same thing, so you can reach out to people if you want answers for a specific question. We have Nakji Stanley saying that that's great insight into angel support for startup, and say thank you. So thanks to you. I think we're reaching the end of this interview. Thank you so much, Jenny. This has been a pleasure. Is there anything else you want me, or you want to add, or you want me to add in the description of the video once it's out? I'll make sure to put the Raise Ventures blog, and also the different things we mentioned, like if we mention some companies or some websites, I'll make sure to add them. And if there is anything else you want to add.
I mean, as I mentioned, our spring program is open at the moment for applications for startups, and we'd love, we'll be running virtual coffees in January that people can come and chat more about their ideas, and happy to chat through before they apply. Also in January, we are going to be running another of our lovely Raise events, connecting startups to investors. So if there's any startups who wants to be involved, please do get in touch, or investors that want to sign up. It's live as well. So there's loads happening next year. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too, and really I think Christmas time is a fantastic time to reflect on the coming year, on what you've been up to, and just what you want to achieve and what you want to do for the new year. So can't wait for that too. Well, thank you very much, Jenny. It has been really a pleasure to have you here today, and I am very glad to see on the chat we had a few people saying that they found also your answers and everything you said very interesting. So I see that a few people may have missed some question I asked you, or I see I am Zero who asked a question, didn't manage to hear the answer because of internet problem. Well, no worries. The video of today will be available on my YouTube channel on Monday afternoon, so you can check it out and hear the answer to your question and more also if you miss more than that. If anyone stopped by the YouTube channel and you're not yet subscribed, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, because that is the main way to support me and to support what we do with these live AMAs. And also I'll be sharing there a new video next week, so keep an eye out. This is not going to be from a live AMA, but just an ad hoc video, and I'll try to do more of these in the coming year. I haven't been able to do more than that, but yeah, some kind of vlogs or something like that. Also, if you want to keep the discussion going and join a community, you can start by stopping by my Discord channel. We are a small community, but always happy to answer questions or point you out to different things, so feel free to keep the discussion going there. And also reach out to me on Twitter, because that's usually the best way to reach out to me. And I'm always more or less on Twitter. I know that's not good, but I am. So today has been the last live AMA of 2020. Really amazing. That's the episode number 35 already, and all of them are available on YouTube. I need to start building my guest list for next year, so if anyone has any suggestions, especially early stage founders or people involved in the startup ecosystem, please feel free to send me your suggestions. I really need to get this and to work on it fast, because the new year is coming really fast. Anyway, I wish you all a fantastic weekend, even if you don't take a break per se, just taking a few days, getting your mind something else, or as I said, reflect on the year instead of just keep working on what you do. It's a good time for that. Thanks everyone. Thank you so much, Jenny, and have all a fantastic weekend and a great, Christmas or just festive season if you're not celebrating Christmas. Thanks everyone. Bye.